Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is my sincere privilege and pleasure to be here to speak with all of you today. What I'm going to do is actually give you a little bit of an insight as to what we went through to develop this railroad, where we are with our progress now, what are some of our plans and visions for the future. So I'd like to start with clicking through a few slides here. And it's not working. That's working even less. How do I get the projection to start? There you go, thank you. And do we have the volume? Well, okay, I'll carry. So what we're doing with the video here is showing the development of the railroad. This is our stage 1 development. It's starting from Shan Habshan, going to Ruwais. It is delivering
Shah and Habshan to Ruwais.
Got up. Thank you.
Stage 2 will connect the railway to Musafa, to Khalifa and Jebel Ali Port, as well as to the Saudi and Omani borders. Each train will have the capacity to carry 10,000 tons of cargo in a single trip. Etihad Rail will also serve the nation's capital. Etihad Rail will move large volumes more safely and more reliably than air, road and maritime transport. Containers and goods will be loaded and offloaded directly from trains to ports and vice versa. Stage 3 will see the completion of the network as it reaches the Northern Emirates. Once Etihad Rail connects the city of Abu Dhabi to the Emirate of Dubai, it will accelerate local trade and benefit everyone, from small traders to large multinational corporations. Besides freight, Etihad Rail will also have the capacity to transport people at speeds of up to 200 kilometers per hour. Network in the north will ultimately link up to the rapidly expanding and strategically important port of Fujairah. Connecting the UAE's Emirates will foster local growth, while linking to Oman and Saudi Arabia will provide access to the GCC's markets and also strengthen regional ties. Etihad Rail will act as a catalyst for the UAE's economic growth. Etihad Rail, towards a sustainable future.
This video is a very good encapsulation of our vision, our mission, the midterm and long-term objectives that has been set by Etihad Rail to achieve a rail network for the UAE. And we are quite proud of it. The interesting thing about this slide, or this little video, is that it's an animation. And now I'd like to show how we've taken those visions from an animation through a lot of planning, hard work by engineers, businessmen, scholars, consultants. Many people have been involved in this project. And when we started, Before construction, the desert looked like this. This is a typical scene out in the desert. During construction, we moved approximately 50 million cubic meters of earth. To give that a little bit of perspective, for those that have seen the Giza main pyramid in Cairo, that's 2.5 cubic meters of earth in volume. So we have moved approximately 20 Giza pyramids of earth to construct our desert railway. We had to make the sleepers, to make sure that we had enough sleepers to use in our railway. We built our own sleeper factory, and we have produced over 650,000 sleepers that have been used on site. We have also imported approximately 50,000 tons of steel rail. We brought in steel rail from Italy because the rail that's needed for rail networks is not ordinary steel. It has to be head hardened or tempered in a certain way, and so it needs to come from a certified provider. And so we brought it in from Italy so that we have the best rail available. And this is what it looks like after construction. So we've gone in a period of only 18 months from a vision, starting construction, awarding of the project to contractors, to actually having moved earth, built a factory, brought in the steel rails and laid it, and we have completed approximately 150 kilometers of track so far. So this next slide is quite interesting. Can you start the video on this? Okay, thank you. Because what we have done is gone from a vision to reality. These are the shots of our train out in Murfa, which is our railhead. And this is the train moving along. It's interesting because when you see the trucks and cars go by, they put their brakes on because that's the first time they ever saw a train in the desert. There he goes. So what we are talking about here is that we have gone from a vision set probably about 10 years ago to build a railroad, the GCC, or our component of the GCC network, to planning it, to engineering it, to tendering it, awarding it, and going through the construction. And we've done all this in all the construction is done in approximately 2 years. So we, as a railroad, as an organization, are very proud of this accomplishment. And we think that the Abu Dhabi and the UAE should also be proud of their accomplishment in this area. I was talking with Dr. Ramis from the GCC Rail Secretariat, and he said they too are very proud of it because it shows that the railroad's development in the Middle East is actually progressing at a quicker pace than was anticipated just a few years ago. So now I'd like to give you just a little bit of an idea of what's going on with our locomotives. We have had purchased for us 7 EMD special locomotives. They're SD70 ACS, and the S is important because it stands for Desert Specification. These locomotives are used strictly right now in Saudi Arabia and UAE. The cabins are air pressurized. That keeps the dust out of the inside of the moving parts within the locomotive. They have special air filters. These are special air filters up here that take the dust out every 15-20 seconds. It filters the dust out so that there's no dust penetrating into the cabin. All of the bearings on all of our locomotives and all of our wagons are specially treated to keep the sand and dust from penetrating into them and destroying them. We have also had each of our trains has 100 sulfur wagons in them. So each wagon has approximately 100 tons in it, so that's each train will be moving approximately 10,000 tons of sulfur. We have purchased 2 sets of trains. One will be operating between Shah and Ruwais, and the other one will be operating between Habshan and Ruwais. Each one will make 1 move a day. They will be moving approximately 200,000 or 20,000 tons of sulfur every day from the ADNOC facilities to the port, where it will be exported to most likely Asia and India for fertilizer. Our wagons, we're quite proud of our wagons. Everybody thinks that a railroad hopper wagon is such a simple thing. It's got 8 wheels, and it's got a body on it that holds product. But we actually have developed ours in a special way. Go back. We have closing tops on our wagons. That way, when we're transporting goods in the desert, sulfur, which is basically manufactured at 100% pure, ADNOC was very insistent that we would not allow for contamination of the product. So what we have done is actually built special hoppers where the tops close, and it keeps out the dust and the sand during transportation, so we can ensure that the product is delivered in a very good condition. We also have bottom drop. The sulfur comes out of the bottom here, and these are automatic door openers right there. So when the train goes over the offloading pit, what happens is that triggers the doors to open, all the sulfur falls out, the train does not have to stop, and it can be offloaded in probably less than 2 hours, and then it can go and make its next load. So these are, although they're very simple in design, we have a lot of electronics. There's electronics there. There's an RFID tag right about there. There's sensors on the bottom. There's sensors on the top. These hopper wagons are the most highly automated hopper wagons in the world, and UAE should be proud of the fact that we were able to deliver them to you. This is our rail network. We have developed it in 3 stages so we could control the process of designing and procuring and delivering the project in a meaningful way, under control. Stage 1 is in gold here. That is the ADNOC project, and it's coming from Shah to Ruwais, and it's coming from Habshan to Ruwais. This project right now is fairly well complete. We are in testing and commissioning right now. The video that you saw shows our locomotives running up and down the track. You know, when you start testing and commissioning, you can first move 1 locomotive to make sure it works. Then you hook 1 wagon to it, and then make sure you can move 1 wagon, and then 5 wagons, and then 10. So you keep increasing the amount that you are testing to make sure you can do it properly. And another thing is the train drivers need to get used to pulling a train that long, because a train with 100 wagons is not, it's like trying to land a 747. If you've been trained on a 737 and you move up to a 747, it's a wholly different experience. So we are going through the process of training our train drivers right now on operating these trains for us. And that locomotive that you saw there is very, very big. It's probably bigger than this screen right up here, just to give you an idea. It weighs 190 tons. It's very heavy. It has 4,300 horsepower in its diesel engine, and it has 6 axles. Each axle has an electric motor on it, so it can control the traction. So it gets its power to the tracks very, very smoothly, very evenly, and it makes for very efficient transportation. Stage 2 starts, and it connects from Saudi to Ruwais. That's our phase A. Phase B goes from the Taif junction. It goes out to Al Ain. Eventually, we will connect from here into Oman, and it will go down into Oman. That's part of our GCC connection. The other part of the GCC connection is right here, which will go up to Qatar, and then it will go on in towards Dammam, and eventually we'll be able to connect to Kuwait, connect to Riyadh, and it'll go to various other places, and I'll show you a map on that in just a minute. Stage C is basically connecting up to Jebel Ali, Port Khalifa, and out towards the Abu Dhabi airport. And then stage F. Now you say, how do we go from C to F? E and D were for a PMC and for systems, and so that's why they're not shown here. But stage F goes into Musafa, which is one of our most complex areas of track, because we have to go around a lot of pipelines and utility lines in that area, so that's why that was broken off as its own separate project. This will be awarded. We tendered it last year. We did the analysis on all of the many bids that we received. Many more bids. There were more respondents than we anticipated, so it took a little bit longer for us to anticipate that we would be ready to award. But now we are ready to award. The award should be out shortly, hopefully by the end of this quarter or in the start of the next quarter. Construction on this, we're looking that it should be 2017 or 2018, in that range. And then stage 3 is in red, that's up here. The importance of this is that we'll be moving quarry products from the mountains down into the construction areas in the rest of the Emirates. And right now that product is being moved by truck. And as you know, there's thousands of trucks on the highway every day. They're large, they're dangerous, there's congestion. And one of the benefits of the railroad, one of the public benefits of the railroad, is that we will be able to help improve highway transportation by reducing the congestion, reducing the pollution that is caused by the large trucks, improving safety, reducing noise, reducing dust. All those things are part of the public benefits that are enjoyed by having a railroad operate in your company. Here's some key facts about the railroad. It's 1,200 kilometers in length. Mostly it's double track. All this is double track through here and up through here. We have around 300 structures and 10 tunnels. Design speeds are freight will travel at 120 kilometers and passenger will travel at 200 kilometers. This is my first mention of passenger because we're building the railroad now for freight, because freight pays for railroads. And then after the railroad is built, then we will add the passenger service to it. And some of the main lines of passenger service will obviously be from Dubai into Abu Dhabi. Also, we'll be having passenger service out in the western region. And this is another one of the socioeconomic benefits of the railroad, is that it will help engage the people in the western region to be part of the rest of the Emirates. Also, the people in the northern Emirates to be able to jump on the train and travel to the other areas within the Emirates. So this social engagement will help develop technology, will help develop jobs, will help develop social integration for all the people that live in the country. We also, as you saw in the video, we are part of the GCC network. And so there's a footprint of the UAE railway. This is the GCC main line. It spans from Muscat up to Sohar, up to Al Ain, crosses Abu Dhabi to Guaifat. One branch goes up to Doha over here, and then is planned to have a causeway between Qatar and Bahrain. There'll be another causeway coming from Bahrain down towards Dammam, and then the main line will continue all the way up to Kuwait City. But this is not the only part of the GCC network. The network also includes the existing line. This line here is existing. It has been existing since 1956. It was developed by Bechtel to move oil field equipment from Dammam into the oil fields down here. And then they also connected to Riyadh so that they had one rail line connecting. This straight part across here is for passenger only, so that they can transport passengers safely across that section. Right now, this area here is going through improvement, regeneration of existing assets. Saudi also has developed what's called the north-south line. It comes from mines for phosphates and coal up in this region here, and they're taken down to Jubail. So this line here has been in operation since 2011. They have been working on the connecting line over here, which is ready to be commissioned. They are also building what is called a land bridge line. Now this is important for Saudi, and it is important for us as a GCC, because right now Dammam, which is over here, and Jeddah, which is over here, are not connected as far as commerce. Any containers coming from Europe down through the Suez and where they're offloaded in Jeddah to go into Riyadh or Dammam, or the main industrial area, they have to be trucked. So that's a long way to carry one container by truck. There's another issue there. Dammam is an export center for the Gulf, right over here, because of all the petrochemical development and products that are being produced there. And they do not have enough containers in Dammam to fill so that they can export their products. So what they do is come down here to Jeddah. Since there's a lot of product coming into Jeddah, and no product going out of Jeddah. There's a lot of empty containers in Jeddah. So to get empty containers from here to there where they are needed, they have to put them on a truck, and they drive empty containers from Jeddah to Dammam to load for export. Once the GCC rail connection is in place here, the land bridge, they'll be able to put several hundred of those empty containers on a train and transport just one train instead of several hundred trucks. So this is one of those economizing factors that will be in place for the Saudi and the rest of the GCC countries. Another key thing is that vessels coming from Europe can stop here, and they will be able to bring their product by train to, let's say, Dubai. Now, why would somebody want to do that? Obviously, if they could come all the way back around and sail around this way, they could land in Jebel Ali and get the product delivered too, probably less expensively. But there is a thing called time-sensitive freight, whether it is food or pharmaceuticals or something as simple as clothes that are for going back to school. And you only go back to school in September, so you need to have the clothes there at the right time. So putting them on the train, you can get the product there faster than if that vessel has to sail around the coast and stop at several points along the way. So what will come from the GCC development of its network is time-sensitive development of freight that is not currently there. And of course, then there's also the high-speed line that is being developed between Mecca and Medina. And what I heard yesterday when I was talking with the president of SRO, it's approximately 60% done. So that's really a good achievement. And then we have the traffic generators in the UAE. We spent a lot of time developing our network. We talked about sulfur already. The blue represents where the container traffic will come and go. We have the red, as I talked about. We have the aggregates, which are in the Northern Emirates. We also have steel development along the coastline. We have several large steel and aluminum plants that are located along the coastline, and they need inbound product, raw materials for processing. We also have cement. There are several cement plants in the Northern Emirates and in Al Ain for delivery to consuming points. And we have waste. We generate a lot of waste in this country, and instead of having it trucked out to the desert, right now we're moving approximately 1,000 trucks a day out to the desert to offload the waste. We can have 1 or 2 trains do that in the future. So here's what our market looks like. We have approximately 30 million tons of aggregates, that's sand and cement, and we have metal products about 14 million tons, intermodals about 11 million tons, and the rest total up. So we have about 70 million tons of product that we will be hauling on the railroad. This was from our early research that we did. We've done several studies on our railroad, so we do know quite a bit about where the customers are, where the commodities are, what are the shipping conditions, and we have actually, in the recent year and a half, gone out and talked to the actual customers, and we have actually been able to increase that 70 million tons somewhat by finding new customers and identifying freight from them. This is the approximate breakdown of percentages. So approximately 45%, and if you add then the metal products here, because a lot of this is inbound iron ore, so we're up to 65, and the sulfur, we're about 75% of our product is bulk heavy product. And a lot of this bulk product comes from the Northern Emirates, as I said. We have 2 material types, which dictates what type of product movement we have. We have gabbro, which is granite aggregates, and then we have limestone aggregates, which are from the Northern Emirates. We have some of these companies, these zones of companies, quarries, are under the control of the Ras Al Khaimah Emirate, and some of them are under the control of the Fujairah Emirate. And so when we did this, what we had to do is map out for ourselves where all the quarries were, which ones were still in business, which ones would be growing, which ones would be contracting, which ones were large enough to take advantage of rail as a means of transportation, because the small ones might not have enough capital to invest in any kind of expansion into rail industry. So what we did was we mapped out all the customers. We went and we talked to every quarry. If they were closed, they were off the list. If they were open, we were determining if they were in business or out of business. So we have the quarry areas, and what we have done is determine that from the quarries they have to come down to distribution centers. So Dubai Sharjah is one. They also have a catchment area where the trucks can go and deliver to clients. We've picked out the areas around the country where we will be offering service to distribution centers. And this is what basically that network looks like. So this is loading in this area, and this is unloading in these areas. We will have silos and piles of aggregates for distribution. And then this is typically the area that they would service with delivery trucks. So that's how our business model works. We can also export product by barge to Qatar, because they don't have very good aggregates, so they use our aggregates. And also from here, we can export to India and other areas because they use the limestone from the UAE for processing steel. And we can also export by rail. Once we load the wagons here, there's no reason that they need to stop in Reyes. They can go all the way to Guayfat, and they can cross into the GCC, so we can transport aggregates by rail into the GCC. Typically in the presentations that I've presented before, I always talked about the intermodal product, which is shifting of containers from the ports to inland by train and then distribution, and how that business model works. Today I'm going to take you into our next step in development, into our future. And what we have here, this shows the existing model. We have the quarries on the mountain, and it's delivered by truck to an end user. In the future, we're going to change that. We'll go back from the quarries by conveyor belt to storage silos in our rail terminal. Then it will go from those silos into a loading silo. It will get loaded into the wagons, and we will weigh the wagon empty. We will weigh it loaded, so we know how much has been loaded into each wagon. It then goes into an unloading and distribution terminal. The wagon's weighed empty, so this weight should match this weight, so we know we haven't lost any product. It's dropped into the loading pit, unloading pit, comes into another series of silos where the product is held until a truck comes to pick it up so it can be delivered to the end user. This is for the large quarries. This is because they need to invest in some conveyor belt systems. However, because we're supporting the economy of all the Emirates, what we are also doing in our terminals is building a small area where the small quarries who cannot afford capital investing in conveyor belts, they can take their trucks and they can bring them to the same terminal, offload. It's pushed by a front loader down into a pit. It's carried then by a conveyor belt. So they too can load their product onto the train and distribute their product by train, reducing their cost. Both of these models should reduce the cost of distribution of aggregate products within the Emirates. This is what the flows look like. We have a lot of flows of aggregates by tonnage in the Northern Emirates, and then we have a lot of flows along the Masafah area here. Thank you. I hope I didn't go too long. I tried to make this as short as possible.